Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Squawks and Talk.
Back at it, baby. Back at it.
Ooh, what a break we were on, boys.
It's been a while.
It has been a minute.
It was not long enough.
Facts.
Because of the semester break, we all went home for Christmas and now we're finally back at it. But speaking of Christmas, we recently had a Christmas episode. How was everyone's Christmas? Slash break.
Magical.
Good.
It's magical.
That's it? Just
Well,
magical?
no, not Matt. Time out. I think all of us have different experiences. My Christmas, I'll be quite honest, it was full of a lot of events that happened, and I am currently on crutches right now because of a surgery I got done. So that hasn't been fun. I had to sit and eat my Christmas candy while I binge watched Suits. If you haven't seen this show Suits, I'd highly recommend it. But yeah, I sat on the couch and watched a lot of TV while I was eating my Christmas candy, and there's other things that was going on. So it was just crazy break. So
Good. Anyone else?
Well, I think you should. We talked about getting stoned the right way, legally, in one of our shows. And I think you should share your experience of coming to after your procedure. Because I remember you were all stressed out on the last show. You're like, guys, you're all freaking me out now. So.
So it wasn't as, like, when I got my wisdom teeth out, it was a little bit different because I had, a little bit longer to wake up and I was acting a little bit more different. But this time it was weird. It was more like I woke up and I felt like I was in a crazy dream. That feeling of have you ever woke up to something that you thought was real but then wasn't real because it was a dream, but then like throughout the day you feel like you're reliving your dream in some weird, it was weird. But
Deep. Deja vu.
like part of it was deja vu, but part of it was like just things I thought was like my imagination was being figured different. It was just a weird mindset of things. I woke up, I thought my foot was still like, I knew it had surgery on, but at the same time I thought it was fine. Like I could go walk out of the hospital just by myself, but people weren't letting me do that. And it was just a weird experience. And I was there, like you could have a conversation with me normal, but the hard part about it is I just wasn't there like realistically. I just didn't feel like I should be there, if that makes any sense. I don't know. It was a weird experience.
No, yeah, I get it.
It was a weird experience.
Coming out of surgery is really weird and can be different for a lot of people.
Did you have any cute nurses?
That is always
yeah,
my
all
favorite
with
part.
one ring right here.
Ooh.
There's
Hey,
two.
hey. Have faith, bro.
Just because they're goalie doesn't mean you can't score.
Wow, that was awesome. That was great. Well, getting into the new semester now, how is everyone's classes going? I know we're only a few days in, but how's it going for
Pretty
everybody?
good. A lot chiller than last semester, at least for me. I don't know about you guys.
Holla.
Yeah.
I know, like, for me, I took 17 credits last semester, and I'm doing 15 this semester. And I'll tell you what, 2 credits doesn't seem like a lot, but it makes a difference. Holy cow. Like, I'm just vibing right now. It's awesome.
Okay. We're only 4 days in.
Yeah, time out. Slow down.
Give it a month or
You
two.
know- yeah, give it a while, and then we'll answer that question. But, yeah, semester's good.
That's
Should be.
good. Any updates for anyone?
Dude, my semester's been like, I was like really nervous about going into this semester because I changed my degree. I'm now in aviation maintenance, as all of you guys know. But like first day of class, I woke up, had an 8 a.m. and it's like first class. Like, I don't know what to expect and stuff right off the bat. I love it. My professors are super cool. Something that's really funny about all my professors is that they're all like older, like pretty old. Like I'd say like 50s, 60s maybe. And they don't know how to work technology, like at all. Like it is a severe struggle for them to work Canvas. So I'm a little stressed about that part, but it's because, man, they know how to crank on airplanes and helicopters, But dude, with that, it's been so interesting just hearing like one class, my professor just explained his experience just having like his A&P, that's airframe and power plant. For those of you guys don't know, that's a certification that you need by the FAA in order to work on aircraft. And he worked for NASA at one point.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
And
That's cool.
this man, flat up, like straight up, dude, he talked about like space for like 2 hours. Like our class is 2 hours long, and he talked about like his work experience. And I swear, okay, maybe more like an hour, but he talked about like working for NASA in space for like an hour. And then he said, well, little do you guys know that if you successfully, pass this course and you get your A&P certification and you're, through the government, you can work on aircraft, obviously, but you can also work on roller coasters, like amusement parks, which I thought was like super cool.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. But he said, even more cooler is you're certified to work on spaceships.
What?
Dude.
So I looked it up.
What?
I could work for SpaceX. The pay is terrible. It's $28 an hour, but there's benefits. You get dental, dude. It's
Oh man.
it's a real deal,
There
bro.
you go. Yeah.
But you could work for SpaceX. And then he started talking about, he's like, guys, he's like, where you're starting right now, he said, you have no idea where things are going to go from here. He goes, just recently, he's like, let's think about this for a second. And like, my eyes are just being opened and all this. Like, I don't educate myself enough on like NASA and SpaceX. And like, I know that there was talk about maybe going to Mars and stuff, but he said that they're now spaceships. SpaceX has spaceships that can go, it shoots up right into orbit and then disconnects, sends the rest of it to the space station or the moon or wherever they're wanting to go. And then it can turn around and has enough reserved fuel to make it back and land.
Yeah.
He
I've
says
seen stuff like that before.
that's revolutionary because if you think about it, once you can get ships to go up there and do that same thing, so let's say you just have ships assemble, like the assembly of a new ship inside of another ship. You're still with me? I know it's kind of confusing. You beat, Earth's gravity, you make it into orbit, you go to the space station with these new parts, these new pieces of a ship, assemble it, then you don't have to work against Earth's gravity, and you can make it to Mars even easier.
So you build
So it's not all just one trip from Earth's gravity. So if you think about it, we're getting close. It's like
almost
really
there.
close.
To the point where we could like send people there.
Yeah, and he said so, and that's a great thing that you brought up because guys, this is insane. Like he was so passionate about it, and I was like, this is awesome. Like this is a great first lecture. He's like, NASA is making something that like a space station. So they say, according to him, they're starting to figure out that with these space stations, the more that they reassemble and the longer that they keep them up there, they keep running into like loads of just like water. Like they get a lot of water. And I don't know like all the facts about this. I need to do more research. But basically what he was saying is they're thinking about making spaceships that are kind of like space stations that are like kind of balloons almost. And they're going to start building like luxurious like space station hotels in orbit.
Dude.
And dude, like this guy's a genius, man. And he's my professor. He talked about it too. He talked about its position. So the moon has gravity. We know that, right? Has a little bit, not as much as Earth. Earth has gravity. But if you look at it, if you go into the midpoint between the gravity from Earth and the moon, there's a perfect like medium. So it's not pulling too much to the right, not too much to the left, and that's where those stations are going to stay. So it doesn't require any kind of adjustment at all. Just minor of use of fuel, of just pushing back and forth. And so these hotels, they're just going to stay in orbit. Yes, they're going to run into like, micrometeorites and solar winds and stuff, but they're in the process of calculating all of that and building these additional space stations, refuel stations, luxurious hotels. Guys, we are so close to going to Mars. It's crazy. And I don't think we get it. Like, I don't think we understand that. Like, I didn't even think about that until he brought that up. So anyways.
It's always been
That was-
something that we're always like, oh yeah, one day we'll go to Mars.
Yeah.
But now that it's actually reality,
like
crazy.
it was seriously, and that's like, and I'm totally butchering this, but like that was like my first day of class, and I was like blown away. I was like, "What? This is so cool." So that's how my first week went.
Dang.
There you
wow.
go.
How did
Sorry.
we even
I know that was
follow
I know that was a lot, but I was just like, there's like flies coming out of my mouth, bro. I was just like, what? This is insane. So
Well, let me bounce off that a little bit. So, I was sitting in my econ class today, and my professor was talking about the scientific theory and stuff because it relates to our quantitative methods, which is using data analysis to make decisions, basically. So, the whole class is about experimenting, and then based on those experiments and based on the result of the data, you make decisions about that. So we're going over the scientific theory, and my professor drops this bomb on us, bro. And it's something that I was like, what the heck? So he talked about Einstein's theory of relativity. Have you guys ever heard about this before?
A little
Yeah,
bit.
a little bit.
Okay, so do you guys know anything about it?
Not really.
Okay, so let me explain this thing to you. So I'll start it off with what we started with. So he started with like, it was a dramatized video of Einstein in the middle of a street. And the street had some puddles in it. But he's standing right in the middle of the street, right? And there's traffic coming on the street. And so he's standing in the street and the traffic moves around him to, obviously they don't want to hit him, right? So they go around him, they're going straight, they alter their course around him, and then they move back into the line. And then it shows Einstein just like with this look of revelation on his face. And then he runs back to his place and he writes down. So what he ended up writing down from that experience was what's called the theory of relativity, okay? And I could be butchering this, like I don't know exactly what was going on, but this is just what I saw. So he writes down the theory of relativity. And the theory of relativity is talking about how space is kind of like matter, okay? And it relates it to gravity. So imagine this, and it relates to what you were saying perfectly because that actually makes a ton of sense. So imagine that space itself is a sheet, just like a bed sheet, okay? You spread it out flat. There's nothing on the bed sheet. It's flat, right? So what if you were to put like a basketball in the center of it? What would happen?
It's gonna droop down.
Right. So the theory of relativity states that matter can bend space, and that as the matter of something increases, so does the gravitational pull of it, because it's bending space more and more and more. So the orbit. So dude, my mind was blown with this. My mind was blown with this. So the orbit of the planets. So you can imagine, so you have the basketball in the sheet, right? So what if you were to throw like a baseball in there? What would happen?
On the sheet.
If you were to throw a baseball on the sheet,
Like spinning it like it's in orbit.
it would go around,
yeah,
but then it would eventually
eventually
reach
hit-
the sun, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we're in orbit, right? So the gravity, or the mass of the sun is so great that it has put an indent in space. And so we are riding the indent of space orbiting around the sun. And so they proved this. Like this was all it was a hypothesis, and they proved it because what ends up happening, in order to prove it, you needed a total solar eclipse, okay? And so they took a picture of the night sky before the solar eclipse, and then they took a picture of the same sky, the same place during a solar eclipse. And the position of the stars in the two separate pictures are in different places because the light from the stars is bending around the space of the sun. Does that make sense?
Just like the vehicles with Einstein bending around him
Exactly.
to get
exactly
to their destination.
So that's what started it all. And so the difference, the distance of the difference between the two photos was like almost exactly what Einstein had calculated hypothetically. And so that's the theory of relativity, and it blew my mind today. I was like,
Holy
dude.
cow.
So yeah, so like when we talk about space, like there's so much we don't know.
But what
And
we
s-
do know
But what
is that Mr. Worldwide could be up there.
exactly.
Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. So anyway, that's the theory of relativity. And I'm sure I butchered it. I don't know who's listening, but that's what I understood, and it blew my mind today. It was pretty crazy, pretty awesome.
Dang. Vastness of space has just like always been something that has fascinated me throughout my entire life, even though when I was a kid. Like just learning about space was so freaking cool. Like there's so many cool things about it, like how expansive it is, and just I don't think we grasp how big the universe is.
How
like
small we are.
how tiny we truly
Even
are.
like just our universe, though. There's
yeah,
more.
well, that's the thing is that there's probably more.
Yeah.
Like there's solid evidence that shows that there's more than one universe.
Yeah.
Which is insane. Like we're literally a speck on a speck on a speck. In like the grand
Horton
scheme.
here's a
I
who,
was
dude.
just about to say that.
Literally, Horton here's a who, bro. We're
We're
just a
in
bunch of
Whoville.
who's, man. And we think our problems matter.
right?
Well, they do matter, but
That's
like,
why Marvel's movie of Ant-Man and Quantumania is gonna be sick. Anyway,
But this was for econ.
It was it
can't
was
believe that's
econ, bro.
econ.
Isn't that crazy? And I just switched my major from like all the sciences. So I'm like,
You're like trying to get away from it.
I'm like, what the heck? But it was actually super interesting.
Yeah,
I was great
for sure.
with it. Yeah, it was great.
That's cool.
So this man just drops this in econ. That is cool. That is so interesting. And you're exactly right. Something I forgot to mention earlier when I was talking about like these space stations, fuel stations that are going to be in between moon and the Earth that don't really have to, focus on using extra fuel and stuff. They have to align it at the equator, is what he said.
The equator of the Earth.
The equator of the Earth. So I don't know how that comes into play with the moon and stuff. But like I said, I do need to do some more research. But my mind was blown when he was explaining it. But
Interesting.
man, it was crazy. That is so crazy.
That
That's
is
so
nuts.
cool.
Something else we could get into in like the space realm, which might be kind of, it's a weird topic to talk about because some people are weird about it. I don't know. We've talked about it before, but what do you guys think about like the aliens and like all of that type of stuff, like all those theories and everything like that?
Well, I think who believes that aliens exist in this room? Like,
I
what do you
do.
guys think? Do you guys
extraterrestrial life, yes.
okay, but not necessarily like intelligent life. Just
No.
like
Yes.
do intelligent life outside of Earth.
Yeah.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
all right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
Are we all on the same page that we do think that they're out there?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Unfortunately. Well, I don't think they're going to be like, how they are portrayed in movies in Hollywood, like little green guys with huge heads and big black eyes. I don't think alien life is like that.
I don't think so.
I think it's going to be very similar to how life on Earth is.
My mom has a theory.
Let's hear it.
My mom loves aliens. So my childhood consisted of on the weeknights. My mom is like low key an insomniac. I love you, mom. You're actually not, but so she would just stay up every single night. Like I remember I'd go downstairs, and she'd just be sitting down there folding laundry or whatever, and she would have this show on called Ancient Aliens. And she literally watched it religiously, dude. Like that's how she would go to bed at night. She'd just be like, I just have a hard time sleeping, so I just put this on. And I'd go to sleep. And it's got like really good like voice actors in it, the very monotone guys, so you can fall asleep, like very easy. But anyways, she'd always be watching these, and I always just thought she just watched them to fall asleep, but she's like super into it, like extraterrestrials, UFOs, all of that. And she has a theory about what aliens actually are and why everybody says that they all look so similar with the big head, big eyes, and slim body. She says, I believe that there's like extraterrestrials, like there's other life. Like there's no way that we can just be the only ones existing, right? She says, I think that the reason why they look the way they do is because they're wearing suits. These big heads of theirs are just suits so that they can breathe, whether it's in their ships or outer space. I mean, I don't know how that all works, obviously, but maybe they're not even able to tolerate our atmosphere and what we breathe. So they wear these big suits with big eyes because that's all that they really have. And then they're wearing full body suits that look like all the same color and stuff. So when she told me that, I was like, oh my gosh, I never thought about it that way. Like these are just spacesuits that they're wearing, and they could look like me and you, or they could look like the blue people from Avatar. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting.
So that's
I
my
just-
mom's theory.
I think it's super cool how because we're talking about how vast space is, right? Like if there were to be like a life form that were to visit Earth, and everything like that, that could be one community of an extraterrestrial life that looks the way they do, or maybe they look like us. Who knows, right? Like what your mom's theory, that could be true, But you got to think, like, and I know this is going to sound super nerdy, but like in Star Wars, they always say it's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Like there's so much we don't know about how far out there, what type of life out there, how far technologically they are,
Right.
how far things can come, because, chances are, even if like they are geniuses, and they're far enough out there, they still haven't found a way to get to us.
Right.
And I just think it kind of shows us not only like the vastness of just like planets and stars and galaxies, but it also like the vastness of potential life, the vastness of potential, things that break our sciences, things that like our laws say, are, it's true and not true. That's something that could completely change laws because it's so far out there that things change, and I think it's
Right.
there's so much unknown.
Right, and kind of to piggyback off of that, something that I find really interesting, I believe it's like 3 or 4 theories about like intelligent life. And I listened to this somewhere and I can't remember where, but it was basically stating like if there is intelligent life out there, either it's like you were saying, Kale, like they're too far away, like there's like a galaxy far, far away, like we haven't even had a chance to contact them yet because they're that far away, or and then this is bleak, but this is another one that we are truly alone and there's no other intelligent life, which is bleak, and I don't think any of the rest of us think that that's true. And then there's also one that I found interesting, is that they have found us. That extraterrestrial life that's intelligent, more intelligent than us, has found us.
I
But
believe that one.
but
It was the aliens that killed the dinosaurs.
but they are so advanced and so like intelligent that they see us as ants, and they're like, oh, we're not gonna mess with them. We're gonna let them evolve
That's
on their own. And so I thought that was super interesting. But I mean, obviously you can't prove that, but it's just
Right.
it's just a food for thought. Like if there is intelligent life, that maybe there is a chance they've seen us. They just don't find any point to contact
There's
us.
no
Like,
interest, 'cause
would
they
you
could
would you really try to communicate with an ant?
They're just gonna squash
Like,
us.
When you find out that abductions are really just like them like playing with us.
Right.
Just giving us little subtle hints.
Yeah.
Maybe it could be.
Like a little kid with a magnifying glass, just like, oh, look at this.
Wow, Mom, did you see this? Stab him with
He's on fire. So where do we think they could be? Obviously not in our universe, right? Or maybe they are.
Well, I think
Like,
one thing I did want to kind of share. I'll answer your question, but then like another comment I had. I think they could be anywhere. They could be in our same galaxy. Like the galaxy itself, like the Milky Way galaxy, is ginormous.
right.
And I know scientists have found like many viable options that could have life. So they very well could be here. I would think those would tend towards either the same advancement as we are technologically, maybe a little bit more, but not enough to like bridge that gap unless they're, already here watching us. Or they're less advanced than we are. So I don't think they have to be, galaxies away. They can be in the same galaxy. I mean, we're on the very, very edge of it. So I think there's that. But I think the other thing I know I'm backtracking a little bit. I apologize. Braxton here was hogging the mic.
Sorry.
But with the like what they would look like, I took the intro to OChem Biochem last semester, and I was just blown away by how atomically we are built up to be who we are, and how like your cells work. So anybody who's taken a science class, like your cellular replication and respiration, how you have to breathe in oxygen to perform metabolism, and then you exhale the CO2. I honestly, in my personal opinion, if life is going to evolve, it's going to have to evolve from the same compounds, because chemically, like from the elemental level, it can't vary. So when you go talking about, like Jeremy was talking about the atmosphere there for a moment, maybe they're wearing spacesuits. Like, why would they have to breathe something different than oxygen? What else can do that?
I was just thinking like more pure oxygen,
Oh, yeah.
because we've adapted over time to like we have different gases. in our
Yeah. So
atmosphere.
I think there are definitely other options, but I don't think there are as many as some might think, because we are limited on like an atomical level, and there's not going to be new elements, because scientists are able to like theorize of potential atoms, even those that don't exist, because their half-life's not long enough. So unless it's a different building block than atoms, which would completely change how we view everything, like they're going to be at least somewhat similar. And I think that's just kind of like an interesting thought to see like how they have to be built from the same blocks that we are, and kind of how would evolution take them? Like what is the like evolutionary perfect animal or being? Like what do they look like? Because humans, you look at everything that we can do in comparison to other animals, like is there a different evolutionary path that's more efficient, has a higher survivability, more intelligent than what we've attained ourselves? Those are just like a couple of thoughts that I have with like aliens, thinking about them.
That's why it's unknown.
Dude,
Yeah,
we're just
space.
in all reality, we're just at the bottom of the food chain, bro.
We really are.
It's a giant talking well out there. That's
That just floats through space. Oh my gosh, it's a comet, not just a whale. Just a whale.
Space whales.
Dude, just real quick though, speaking of comets, I don't know if you guys knew this. I have a stuff nose. I'm trying to say comets. You guys know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
You talk about comments.
Comets, guys. There's a comet coming up, and it is they say has been one of the closest comets to Earth. It's called Comet C/22 E3. Wow.
Wow.
I know.
Creative.
They're very creative. It's going to be on February 2nd of this year and it says it's going to shift to the northwest on the horizon throughout January, and it will make its closest pass to Earth between February 1st and February 2nd, from what it sounds like, or through February.
Where's it going to be the most seen at?
It
Like,
says,
what location
I have
on
no
Earth?
idea. I would have to look more into like articles and stuff. But I remember seeing a comment in 2020, I think it was, or 2021, and I could see with my binoculars at night. Like if you went to a dark place, like out in the hills, and you just got your binoculars, you could see like its trail.
That's
So
cool.
That is cool.
that's cool. Space whales. Wow,
Space whales.
how profound. I love that.
I like to think they're like orcas, you know, like little space orcas.
But like seriously though, like with aliens though, like I feel like we've kind of been talking about like how and this is obviously up to everybody's like own interpretation of what they believe, but like I feel like there's like some low key evidence that they've like made contact with people on Earth, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like the story of Travis Walton in Fire in the Sky that was made into a movie, but it's about a guy that was a lumberjack and he was in his crew with a bunch of other lumberjacks, and like he was abducted by a spaceship that they found out in the forest, and I think it was in Oregon, and yeah, he was abducted, and he actually talks about it on the Joe Rogan podcast. I highly encourage that.
Really?
Yeah, I highly encourage that you guys look that up and listen to it. It is so cool, and the guy is not like he's not like a BSer. Like he's so genuine about it and so sincere that you can tell that he's telling the truth. I mean, it feels like he's telling the truth, but obviously everybody has their own opinions and stuff. But there's like Skinwalker Ranch. There's like Roosevelt, I think, is a place that they've talked about. Roswell. Roosevelt, I've heard of some stuff.
Roswell.
Roosevelt, Utah, I've heard some weird stuff there.
No,
But Roswell as well. Roswell, New Mexico, there's stories of that as well. Like Area 51. Like,
Right.
I was about to bring that up. Like, I don't know exactly how it all works, but what is like the tall tale of how that's involved with aliens?
Well, Area 51 was always like rumored to be like the place where government was hiding aliens and like UFO, like crashed UFO ships and stuff.
So I guess that's a whole nother
And,
other side of it is like people think that the government might be involved with
Right,
aliens.
like a lot of people theorize that that aliens have made contacts, but the government is hiding it from everybody. And I don't know, this is sidetracked, but who remembers the whole Area 51 thing in 2020?
Oh my gosh.
Or what was
That
it?
was awesome.
Was it 2019? I can't remember, but like how everyone was gonna raid Area 51. Like that was such a weird thing.
Some guy just
Like-
gets on and was like, oh, who's with me?
And it was like millions of people signed on to go.
And then I think like only like 100 people actually
Yeah, like-
went and tried.
Yeah,
obviously.
but obviously it didn't get far because it's
Yeah.
an army base and they'll literally probably obliterate you if you try to even get in. But yeah, no, I thought that was just funny. Sorry, sidetrack, but no.
No, you're good.
But UFO stories are kind of like they're interesting, and I think that's why we like them so much. It's kind of like the same reason we like horror movies is because like the fear of the unknown. It's like kind of cool.
When I was writing my
So-
story or my research paper this last semester on monsters, they talked a lot about the fear of the unknown and how that kind of drives humans to learn in general. Like we learn because we don't know something, and not knowing something eats at us. Most people. And if you don't, and the people that say they're like, oh, I don't care about learning about that, it's because it's not relevant right now with their lives. But like a lot of people just like to learn things. I mean, why are we doing the careers and why are we doing the majors we do? Because in somehow or in some way it's interesting, or it's giving us interest in what we want to do with our futures, you know. And so that's why we want to learn about it. And so the fear of unknown is a big driving factor of how like we make discoveries. So
It's cool.
Was something I've been researching, like just as we've been sitting here, and it was sparked by a thought that I had watching actually part of a Joe Rogan podcast. But I think it's interesting how like we're talking about the aliens, but like despite like everything we've accomplished as a human race, like we're on the verge of going like to another planet and potentially inhabiting that planet, but. And then Kale was talking about like the fear of the unknown. I think it's so interesting how, despite everything we know, we don't know how the pyramids of Giza were built. And so I've been like researching those a little bit, but mathematically they have not figured out how those were built. Like they don't know, and to the precision that they were built. I don't know if you guys know much about it, but there's like there's it's so crazy. Jeremy's laughing. There's blocks in the pyramids of Giza and some of the tombs that you can't even fit a razor blade in between. That's how precise they were with their cuts. And I think the main pyramid points directly north to true north. I just think it's so interesting, and they literally can't calculate how they were able to do it back then. And now there's all these like weird theories about how they use like sound. I don't know if you guys have heard this theory of basically they use like sound to propel the rocks where they needed to go. I'm just like, what the heck, man? Like,
This might be a really dumb comment, but are they solid all the way through, or is there like open inside?
so
Inside, isn't there?
right, there's openings on the inside, but for the most part, it's solid. The caverns and the tombs that are in there are minimal.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, so you have those people that try and explain it with science and with math,
Doesn't make
and they're not able to. And so then you have those people that are like, well, had to have been the aliens. Had to have been them.
That's me, dude. I am that person.
So I'm just gonna share something. It was just like a little meme I saw online, and I thought it was personally funny, and I hope it doesn't come across as racist. I don't mean that in any intent. I'm just kind of sharing it with the pyramids. But it's like everybody's always fascinated about the pyramids of Giza, in Egypt and everything. And then there's pyramids in South America, like all over the place, but nobody thinks twice about how are those built. Because nobody questions Mexicans' construction abilities. That's just what I saw in I mean that in like the least racist way possible. Like I'm not targeting anybody that way. I'm just sharing. There's pyramids in this continent, like in South America, all over the place. I've seen them myself. I've been inside a couple, and super cool. But like they're obviously, I don't think they're nearly as big as they are in Egypt, and I don't think I know like the pyramids in Egypt, they align up with a lot of like things, astrology, like with the stars and that. So there is obviously a lot of math. Like there's a reason why there's questions about them. It's just funny how we overlook the ones, not in our own backyard, but I mean, they're pretty dang close and nobody thinks twice.
Compared to
about those.
Egypt, they're close.
So, yeah, compared to Egypt. So anyways, I just wanted to slide those 2 bits in there.
Yeah, I think we could talk about this stuff all day, really, but I think we should add more of a theory segment to our show. But I guess transitioning to our shows and movies, we'll start with 2 shows and then we'll get into our reviews on Avatar. But the first show is, I just barely thought of it, and why it's actually the one that sparked why we watched it.
Yes.
Because of nightmares when he was a kid. But the show, Coulter hates it. It's called Whodunit. It's
Team Chris all the way. Team Chris all the way.
Team Chris.
Team Chris.
It's a reality TV show that's
Miss Nevada 2010.
it's so fake. Like it's like cringeworthy fake.
overview of it, because it doesn't make sense when you
Okay, I'll give the explanation because this like sparked from me. We have this conversation. We're just not gonna explain it because people don't need to know that about me. But we were talking, and I just kind of shared like I got traumatized by this show when I was a child. I wasn't really a child. I was like 11, but we were watching it with my family and I. And so it's a murder mystery. It's kind of like you took Clue almost, and you made it a reality TV show, and it's kind of like the cheesy 2000 ones, like the same music and transitions and like all the drama and
Like Amazing
interviews and And so, anyways, it's like this group of people, they get brought to this mansion in the middle of nowhere to participate, and they get there, and one of them is the killer. And so every episode, somebody dies, and the point of it is everybody has to figure out how did they die, and it's like a game show, like almost like an escape room where you're searching for like hidden clues in that. And at the end of each episode, the contestants say, "Okay, this is how you killed them, and this is with what." And it's like like Clue, like it was the Mr. Green in the kitchen with the wrench. It's kind of that type of thing. And then the people who get it the most right, they're saved. But those who suck at being detectives and couldn't guess why, they're scared.
Usually 2 or 3 people.
Usually 2 or 3. And then one of them dies the next episode, and it just continues like that.
they
So
don't
that's
really
the
die.
essence. They don't really die.
Oh, no,
really die.
they don't
Shocker,
die.
but
Obviously, they're not gonna.
11-year-old Wyatt didn't know that and was scared to death.
Yeah, I don't know. It kept our attention, except for Coulter.
We
but-
binged that in like 24 hours.
Yeah, like 2 days we watched that whole thing.
It's one of those shows where it's like it's fake and it's so cheesy, but you just can't help but watch it. You
Yeah.
know,
I enjoyed it. Like I thought it was good, but I mean, it definitely is super fake, super cheesy.
It's bad.
Yeah, it's bad. Like
But
honestly,
we watched it.
But like, it's like that's what I'm saying.
For
Like,
Team Chris, obviously.
That's the only reason.
For
Obviously.
those that are interested that are listening, you guys, it's available on YouTube. Just look up Who Done It.
for free.
Don't pay for it.
The funniest part is the
Just
first one
watch
that
it.
pops up, you have to pay, and then the one right next to it is a playlist that someone random just posted, and it's all for free.
and it's good quality.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need that good quality.
There's
'cause
only one
Chris is on
season.
there.
It was canceled after one season, and you know.
It's unfortunate.
I think they should have brought it back.
I understand why they
They should bring it
canceled
back
though.
now.
It's kind of hard to just plan those serial killer type things, you know. You just got to catch them in the act.
With
so.
today's day and age,
Yeah.
it wouldn't go well.
Well, what's really funny is after like every person that dies, and like there's the scene of the crime, and there's the morgue, and there's all of this and stuff. After the show ends, that specific show of when the person died, they have like a short, like 15 seconds of just like interviewing.
It's like
them.
Survivor at the very end when after the person's voted off, they're like, "Oh man, really sucks that I got voted out, but I had a great time. Got to meet some great people.
And
good luck to
funny
everyone
because
else."
they're still covered in like blood and makeup.
Like all their makeup."
Yeah. And like one girl was like, not to give too much away, but one girl was like hanging in a tree when she died. And so like they cut it to the part, and was she still in the tree?
Yes.
Yep.
I think she was like still in the tree, and she was like talking about like, oh, like I thought I could have lasted longer. So anyways, it's free on YouTube. You guys should watch it. It's hilarious.
It's
and
something you just gotta experience. Like it's so bad that it's so good.
Yeah.
It's one
Well,
of
and
those-
we watched it when we were younger. I remember. But anyway, the next show, and it's actually a series of shows, and I think Jeremy knows the most about them, and I've seen a little bit of it, but it's 1883, 1923 in Yellowstone, and Yellowstone was actually released first. And do you know when that was released?
20 years.
Gosh, I don't know. It was
18
pretty
or
recent.
17.
It, yeah.
Fairly recent.
It
And
has a
then-
couple seasons out, I think.
Yeah, so it was released, and then they released a prequel to that, which was obviously based in 1883, and then they kind of split the difference between Yellowstone and 1883, and they put 1923 in there.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, Kale was right. Yellowstone was released in 2018. Yellowstone's like a really popular show right now. It seems like everybody's watching it. I never really had huge interest in it, like even though like a lot of what's shown on there is kind of like a lot of the culture that I'm used to from where I'm from. But 1883 kind of tells the story of like how Yellowstone came to be and this family that it talks about. And 1883, it takes time during like the westward expansion. And so I've been watching just I think it's like a limited series. So it's just like one season. But it tells the story of the Dutton family and how they're part of a company, a wagon company. And they're crossing the western United States to go to Oregon. And it is seriously so good. Like, I honestly love it because it's got the cowboys and Indians, and you're getting in gunfights and shootouts, and they're pushing cattle, they're pushing wagons. You're just like the Oregon Trail experience, like you talk about. People are dying from rattlesnakes and dysentery. You know what I
But
mean?
I will say it's not for the faint of heart. It's
Yeah.
it's definitely kind of gory. but-
Absolutely, yeah. It's very dramatized, and yeah, it's definitely not for all ages, but it still tells a really good story. And might I say, like, I think the script writers of that show, of like that season, did a terrific job. Like, there's some monologues in there that are just like, holy cow! Like, there's some one-liners where you're like, that's sick, and they kind of just talk about like this perspective, like. The main narrator of the story is this. I think she's 18 years old. Is this 18-year-old girl named Elsa. Whew. Team Elsa. You got to watch this show just for her, man. Anyways, she kind of just talks about how she sees this whole experience through her eyes, and so it's so interesting how she talks about it. So, I'd highly encourage
And if
you
you're
guys,
a fan of Tim McGraw,
yeah, Tim McGraw's in it and his wife. So that was really cool.
Faith Hill's in it?
Faith Hill.
Yeah, their chemistry is so true. Like, it's so cool. So how they bring that into it. Anyways, yeah, that's
Yeah,
my thoughts.
we'll
on
have to give
1883. It's sweet.
more reviews after I've seen more of it, and if anyone else has seen more
Well,
of it.
I have actually never heard of it until just recently. And something I watched a video. Do you guys know who Matt Pat is? He's like the game theory guy. Do you guys know who he
I know
is?
who he is.
I've heard of him, yeah.
So he did a video about on Yellowstone about how it's one of the most popular shows in America, yet hardly anyone has ever heard of it. And the reason for that is it's not like a mainstream show that people talk about like on Twitter. Like, and this is kind of a tangent, but it was kind of talking about how Twitter like forces you to see a specific thing that's like
all social media.
like all social media. So it's literally like the top show in the nation, and hardly anyone's heard about it, or like no one talks about it. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
So people watch it,
So
but they're not.
people watch
they're
it,
not
but
talking
like,
about it.
and people still talk about it, obviously. But it's not something that social media or like brings to the forefront.
That's true because thinking back, I haven't seen many ads or like commercials or
I
trailers.
I haven't either.
much
I don't
about
think
it.
I've seen any ads or any marketing for Yellowstone 1883, 1923. I don't think I've seen any advertisement for it at all.
Well, I imagine it's probably not talking about like the current, like it's not addressing the current political climate at all. I'm sure,
Right.
right? So I'm sure that has a reason to do with its lack of progress within like advertising and things like that.
That's what I was gonna say. I think the target audience. I think it'd be interesting to see who that's reaching out to, because I haven't heard about it at all. Like, I know more about it now than I did before from what Jeremy was explaining. But to me, it sounds kind of like that old Western, kind of the classical that our parents or our grandparents grew up with, that kind of culture or that kind of interest. So it'd be interesting to me to see if maybe it's not like the younger people, that are on the social media platforms that are watching it. Maybe it's kind of the older generations, just because it applies or appeals more to them.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just
Maybe they feel like they don't need to push advertisement as much.
And that's the
because-
thing, like social media, like things like Twitter are geared towards people that are a younger audience.
And if their target audience is older people, like Wyatt said, then social media probably isn't their
exactly like
biggest priority.
Yeah. It just shows that there are things that people want to watch that are outside of the mainstream media.
Yeah.
So
Especially with like cable getting, cable going down on the back burners and the rise of streaming television, like Roku TV and, we've seen that, a lot of people, it's cheaper to do that. And so older people who are getting, these streaming services now are not looking for, the typical young, the series that are for us, younger audiences, but are looking for what they're that's appealing to them. Like in Yellowstone, Wyatt has something to say.
I'm just dying because I'm picturing my dad and my uncle Jeff Brinkerhoff. He'll probably never listen to this podcast, but he's from Tropic, Utah, and they watch like the Alaska survival shows, like Alone. and that.
Alone is good.
And, and that's what my grandpa watches too. And so that's just when Kel's talking about that audience and like what they find on the streaming networks. Like my dad's on Disney Plus and he's watching like almost a National Geographic like wilderness survival type stuff on there. And anyways, that's why I was chuckling.
He's not watching like Marvel, right?
No. My dad hates Marvel, but like
see,
if it's a guy with a knife in the woods hunting, like my dad will eat that up.
Yeah, see, that's my point. Is I think because cable is so expensive now for people to own, and it's cheaper to get the streaming services. Those older generations are looking for those services or those shows that are more relatable to them and what they're used to watching back when they were watching on cable.
For sure.
So, yeah, it's crazy how even marketing teams are smart. They just know what they're doing.
Well, and the show that it streams on is Paramount Plus. So like Yellowstone, 1883, 1923. It's all on Paramount Plus. If you think about it, a lot of the good shows from the old days are on Paramount. Like Indiana Jones. I love Indiana Jones. My grandpa showed me Indiana Jones. That's a Paramount production. So it wasn't Paramount Plus back then. But it's like,
Yeah, right.
So it's available on Prime and Paramount. So check out the show.
Okay, next up, Avatar. And here is the spoiler alert. We will get into it. So skip ahead a few minutes if you don't want to hear it, if you haven't seen it yet. But what do you guys think? Might have to dig back in the files in your brain because it's been a minute since we've seen
Right.
it. But
right.
I thought it was better than the first one. That's like a hot take just because a lot of people liked the first one. I didn't. I thought the first one was it was a new theory that they were trying to push. And for me specifically, in my personal opinion, I thought they were trying to create this amazing story with, and is it based off of a book? I don't know. It's just a made show, right?
So I was actually watching a video the other day. Like the story itself, and this actually crushed me when I heard this, and like I made the correlation because the first Avatar is one of my favorite movies of all time. But the story of the first movie is rather unoriginal. It's basically Pocahontas or any other colonizing movie. Like
Oh yeah.
like colonizers come, they're the bad guys, they're the dicks that take everything, and you know what I mean?
Right.
So the story itself is actually super unoriginal.
Based on a true story.
So yeah, when I heard that, I was a little sad. But that doesn't take away from the fact that I think I still love the first movie.
Cinematic masterpiece.
Right, and I think that I think, and sorry, Kale, I don't mean to take away from what you were saying, but I think for me, like what makes it so cool is just like the world that it created. Right, it's not Earth that we're dealing with. We're dealing with a whole new planet, and at that point, the imagination that you're dealing with is just completely different. So I think it's cool.
But why did you not like the first one? That's like why I'm curious. Like, what made you like the second one more than the first one, Kel?
The storyline, I think, and I didn't even think about that, but like just looking back at it, that could be why. Is because it's like I felt like I knew it was gonna happen the whole time.
Yeah.
Like there was a little like some parts that were surprising to me, like him, ending up at the end of the movie getting fully transferred his human body to his avatar, right? And there's like parts in the first movie where I thought was super interesting of how they connected with like wildlife, right? And like how, what's the god's name of
Awa.
Awa, right? How like Awa was connected through everything and how they did everything through her. Like how they connected to ride their animals, how they got, that spiritual connection. I thought that was all cool, but like the storyline of this team like going and discovering these people and then falling in love with these people and then ending up defending that people against the very cause of, what they were trying to figure out. It's just, I kind of like, as soon as I started watching the movie, I knew that like just because of the acting in general, I knew who was the bad guys and I knew who was the good guys and I knew what was going to happen with the protagonist of the story. I liked the second one more because here they go from two types of people, right? They have the water people and the forest people, right? And the whole sequence of them trying to relearn who they are, because at the beginning, like avatars were avatars and they knew who they were and they showed Jake the way, right, of how to be an avatar. But now, like in the second movie, that whole family, Jake and Tiri, both of them moved to this whole thing, and even her and her family, somebody who's been born and raised an avatar, had to learn a different way of life, just like any of us would have to learn a different way of life if we were to move to a different culture, And the whole movie, in the second movie, of them relearning and how some of them, like one of the sons was getting bullied, and then like how one of the daughters like instantly connected with Awa there because she was a misfit before, but now she's not a misfit, but she's still kind of a misfit. Like they just developed all the characters in unique ways for me. And so I fell in love with not just Jake and Tiri, or not just with Jake and the people of Avatar. I fell in love with Jake's new character as a leader, Tiri as a mother, the sons as like the oldest son as like a protector, the middle son as each character they like described, and they kind of didn't go on like a big tangent run off of each character, but they went on little runs with each character that like I thought beautifully described the family and what they were going through and what their purpose was. And so I don't know. The second movie, I felt like every scene I was like learning something new, and that I was applying and making comparisons to lots of different things that are actually real.
Yeah, they're building the world, right? And so like they went more into depth with it. Something that thought was really funny that my little sister actually brought up, and I didn't even really catch it until after I finished it, was the second movie. Yes, it was telling these new stories, establishing these new characters, building this world, but it also repeated a lot of the same things from the first movie. There's the part where the whale's attacking Jake's son. That's the same thing as him being attacked by the tiger thing in the jungle when it's biting through all the branches. That whale's biting through the coral. There's like a couple other scenes. I can't really remember right now because it's been a while. But yeah, I totally agree. I loved the movie. I loved the visuals. I loved everything about it. It just tells a great story. Like it's a really good way to go and just go into this world of fiction and just unplug and just like enjoy some really cool shots. It was like how many hours? 3.5 hours?
3 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah, about that.
It was like over 3 hours, and I wasn't tired once. Like I didn't feel like I needed a break.
I
which
will
is
say,
crazy.
like the first first half, about hour and a half of it was definitely slower, but holy cow, that last hour and a half, you're just
Yeah,
glued to the screen.
I've seen it twice, and I gotta admit the second time was a little bit harder to get through, just because I knew it was coming. But
Right.
that first viewing is pretty good. Like you're able to
You
get
can't
sucked
beat
in
it.
pretty well. But I don't know. But I'd say it's a kind of a one-time movie kind of deal. At least that's my opinion with it.
once in a while.
Every once in a while, yeah.
I'm gonna give the hot take out there of it not being my favorite.
Yeah,
Yeah, boo.
Wyatt.
I thought it was a good movie. I didn't think it was a bad movie or anything. I think, and I didn't really think a whole lot about it until Kel was kind of describing, comparing the first one to the second one. To me, the second movie was a fantastic movie. There's nothing wrong with it. Like I thought it was really, really good. I felt like it was almost displaced from the first one. And that could just be because the first one, I grew up, I was a child, and it was Avatar, and it was awesome. And then you get to that long-awaited sequel, and it wasn't quite what I was expecting. And I think because the first one, in my opinion, had a bigger impact on, like, the plot line was kind of a little bit more intense. The second one felt like it was a lot smaller scale. It felt like it was, it was their family against, what's the general's name? The bad guy.
Quartage.
Who?
Quartage.
Quartage or whatever. That's a weird name. I will say the villain, I hated his guts. Like you cannot relate with a villain any less than I did with him. But I feel like it was like their family against him. But in the first movie, it's like an entire race against these colonizers. And they're like in the air and that. And then you get to the second movie and they're in the water, which I thought was awesome. I loved that. And then you get to the end of the movie and they're like, this is our people now. And it's just like, what happened with like all the people, all those connections you made with these characters from the original tribe in the trees, like they don't matter. And the second movie ends, and instead of them like still being kind of that nomadic part, they're like, this is our home now. And I don't know. To me, it felt like there's a couple of things from the first movie that had a little bit more significance, and then we're just kind of left behind. To me, and that could just be the child in me that I loved the freaking dragon-looking thing that he rode, and then it flies off into the sunset, and then adios. It's like. Those are the type of things, I guess, that to me didn't meet my expectation, but it was still an overall good movie. And I think they very well can come back in the sequels. And maybe just as like, this is the one that wasn't my favorite, but the third one's going to slap, it could be that. So
Yeah, we have no idea what these future movies are going to bring.
I think the second one definitely established there is going to be more.
Yeah.
In like the sense of like elements, I think.
Well, I think the director James Cameron came out and saying they filmed the third movie while they were doing the second one. So
Third and fourth,
they're
I
in the
think.
process of the third. I don't know if it's confirmed the fourth or fifth, but the third one is definitely confirmed.
It was. So they made enough money that they're going to push through and do all. I think
Okay,
it was
figured.
5.
I
think
figured.
they're
Yeah,
doing
5
5
was the
movies,
original
so.
plan from
I
them.
guess just as the viewer, like just from the movie standpoint, like I guess regardless of like what he's saying, just of like the storyline and everything, like okay, yeah, I can see them doing another one
Yeah.
from like that standpoint.
Yeah, I think it's set to release next year. Or I guess it would be this
He
year
said
now.
James Cameron came out and said that he wants to release one every 2 years from now, like every 2 years.
I can do that rather than 8
Yeah.
or 10 or whatever
that's
it
a good-
was last time.
Yeah, well, you can't blame him. He had to technology had to catch up with the way they made that movie, which was really cool, by the way.
For its time, holy cow!
like
The first
behind-
one,
the second one, behind the scenes. Have you seen the behind the scenes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's insane.
'Cause, like, the
how
whole
they're able to
movie
do
isn't
motion capture
CGI.
underwater. Like that is so cool how they're
didn't
able to do that.
that one like the one girl set
yeah,
her world
Kate
record?
Winslet. She was in Titanic too, I think. I
Yeah.
could be wrong, but she has the world record for holding your breath underwater the longest. I think she held her breath for 7 minutes.
I looked this up, and I think it's actor.
Actor, yeah,
Not-
not
not-
like actual,
Not
but
like
actor.
overall, but
yeah.
like, yeah, she world record.
She
for-
beat Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
She
That's a
beat
giant
Maverick
pat on her
himself.
back.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I actually don't know this. Does anyone have the Daily Florida Man?
I do.
Oh, good. Jeremy has it. If not, I was just gonna search a random one.
This one's really funny because it's coming up soon. All right, today's Florida man. Florida man arrested for punching girlfriend who changed channel during Super Bowl in the face. So he punched his girlfriend in the face for changing the Super Bowl channel.
So she called the cops and he got arrested.
Yeah, so it says a Florida man has been charged with felony battery after local authorities alleged that he punched his girlfriend in the face for changing the channel during the Super Bowl 55. According to the arrest report, 55-year-old Thomas White and his girlfriend began arguing after she changed the channel away from the championship battle between Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh my god.
Wow.
To win, man.
I know. I think that's hilarious. Punch his girlfriend in the face. That's crazy.
Some people, some Florida
Why
men.
you in here? My girl changed the channel, man. I was so pissed.
Trying to watch the Bucks.
Trying to watch Brady. Okay. Today's question. Kale's still stuck on it. Today's question is kind of going back to what we talked about in the beginning. Was the moon landing real or fake?
I have a hot take on this, but I don't like. For me, I'm under the impression that we did not get to the moon.
How come?
There's a couple reasons, none of which are very good, I don't think, but really it's just a hunch at this point. People have told me so many times that I'm wrong. Like, I think we've come a long way with technology, and I can't see the reason why we haven't been there since, and like why we just stopped. Like, that's such a huge feat. Like, you just stop.
But then
going.
the counter argument to that is why? We've already been there. Why would we need to go back? Exactly.
I think that we did. I think it was true.
Anyone else have any hot takes?
I say we did, and just to spite the Russians. I think we did it. The motives was just to spite the Russians. That's
Right.
the only reason we did it.
Whether they did or not, I think the purpose of why they wanted to land on the moon was not to like create this awesome, new discovery, or to create first small step for man, or what is it? One small step for man,
One giant leap
for mankind. I think that was
Mr.
all
Worldwide.
scripted just to get into Russians' face to say we are better than you.
Yeah.
I don't think it had to do with anything of discovering, like, maybe they had people up
Beyond
there
the
already, or maybe they
stars.
didn't. I don't know. It's just
I think it happened. I believe in it.
The only time the
Believe in
Earth
it.
has gotten heavier is when we brought rocks back from the moon. Stew on that. Okay, we'll see everyone next week.